Hello everyone, it's Laureen here. I'm here to walk you through how I designed and created one of my 4 World Cardmaking Day cards. So this is the card that we're going to be working on today, and I absolutely love this collection of papers from Simply Stated Design. It was very difficult to choose because they have so many wonderful collections, but I must have been feeling very zen the day that I picked it because I find the colors very calming and just absolutely beautiful. So as you can tell, I've used more than just what is included in your kit, but please remember that these cards are intended to be inspiration. So whether you have all the exact other pieces in your stash that you can use, or if you have something similar, I know that you can produce a very similar style of card using whatever you might have in your stash. Okay, so we'll get started here. The first thing that we're going to do is just do a basic A2 card base, and that's using the white cardstock that you got in your kit. Now, I've obviously colored my cardstock, and the color of ink that I've used for that is Catherine Pooler's Cashmere dye ink. It's a really, really soft, beautiful color, and I thought it tied in really well with the ephemera as well as the background paper. In terms of the ephemera and the paper that I've used, it's from the Floral Academia collection from Simply Stated Design. So the paper is the 12 by 12 sheet that has 4 different pattern papers on it, and this is the one 6x6 piece that we're going to be using today. I've already trimmed it, which I will talk about in a moment. And then we'll also, and then the sentiment, find beauty in the little things, which I thought was really appropriate since we're working with a little house that has, tiny little succulents and furniture and that kind of thing. And that's from the Floral Academia Essentials ephemera package. So it comes with tags and tabs and circles and other sentiments, as well as some flags. So it's a great little collection of pieces for layering and creating clusters. And this paper, was the Floral Academia paper 10. And then the little house is from the Garden House ephemera collection as well. So super, super pretty. Love that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I inked up the background, which may seem very, very basic, and there's many ways that you can do it. But what I used was my waffle flower mat, sticky mat, and then waffle flower has these stencil, they're masking corners, and it comes with a number of different sized corners, and they're just a stencil. And I thought it ended up being a really easy way to mask off just the front panel. That's all I wanted to color, of course. And you can see it just created a really nice clean line here. You can do that with, Post-it notes or a low tack tape, but this was a really easy way for me to do this. So I'll show you what I've done, and if you happen to have them in your stash, you may want to consider doing that too. So I'm going to run it. So this is the front panel of my card, and this is what I'm going to be inking. And then I'm going to take my mask and I'm going to run it down the spine of the card and just align it so that I know that I'm protecting the back half of my card. And you can see that it's stuck down because the stencil changed color underneath there. So this mat is nice and grippy. This is the older mat. It's not the new one that came out more recently, but I think it's really great for keeping things in place. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my Cashmere Catherine Pooler ink. I'm actually just going to shuffle this over a little bit so that I have room on my grip mat. This is the Tim Holtz grip mat, and it works great for keeping your ink pads in place when you're blending. And I'm also using the background blender brush from Waffle Flower. This is the newer packs of blending brushes that came in. So I grabbed the cream colored handled ones. There's, I think, 3 different packages. I thought I'd give them a try. I saw another person using them, creator using them, and it looked really, really nice. So they say to swirl your brushes in a couple different directions and then just tap it off on a piece of paper off to the side and then just start blending. Now I'm not going to be too precious about how I'm applying the ink here, because the nice thing about the Catherine Pooler inks, there's many nice things, but it dries back beautifully. So it may look like a bit of a hot mess when you're first putting the ink down, but I promise you it will dry back really, really lovely. And I wouldn't even be upset if it actually had a few variations in color, because of course the ephemera itself has some different shading on it and whatnot, so it might look actually really nice if it had some variation of color in the background as well. So I'm just gonna keep applying some ink here. I did find that I had to make sure that my ink pad was nice and hydrated, if you will. So I did put some re-inker down so that the blending brush tended to pick up the ink a little bit easier. I actually normally use blending foams and I use distress inks a lot for creating backgrounds. So using a blending brush is not very common for me, but I have to say these waffle flower brushes are really quite lovely and they're beautiful. So that always helps too, having something pretty in your stash. If you hear the tinkling of a collar, that's my dog who's just entered my craft room. He's my crafting buddy. So, okay. So it looks like a bit of a hot mess right now, but I promise you it is going to dry back really nice. And so I just wanted to get that out of the way so that it will have some time to dry while we're working on the other pieces. And that way it'll be nice and dry when we go to adhere the other pieces to it. So I'm just gonna set that off to the side and then pull up my, okay. And you can see that just created a really nice straight line there. Okay. Just gonna put this off to the side and let that dry. Okay, the next piece that I wanted to work on is just to create the very basic black background. And what I used for that is the Waffle Flower Postage Collage die set. This has been really, really popular. It came about at least a year ago, I guess now, and it comes with all these additional pieces. And the really great thing about Waffle Flower's die sets is it comes with a magnet sheet as well, which is really nice. So I know that they have a little bit of a higher price point to them, but they're really, really good quality dies. And I do love that it comes with that magnetic sheet. So then what I did was I just cut down a piece of black cardstock, and this one is 4 inches by 5.5 inches. And I'm just gonna run it through my die cutting machine over off to the side here. Okay, and so this is what you get when you die cut it. And then I'm just going to use my little tool here to pop out some of these extra dots, but it does cut really, really, really nicely. Okay, and one more there. I'll just use my little pokey tool. Okay, so that's our base. That's the same one as here. Okay, so I'm just going to put that to the side. And then the next piece is actually going to be cutting out the pattern paper. So you can see in the background here, that's what this one is. Now to do that, there is a nice die that fits exactly within this die cut piece. And it makes it really, really nice rather than having to die cut it again with this die and then cutting out each of the individual pieces of paper to lay on top. So it already does the work for you. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this out again using my die cut machine over to the side. I'm using the Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. I love it. And what I'm actually going to do, because you can see on my background, I've actually embossed the pattern paper and added some ink to it. So I need to be able to run this through my embossing folder as well. So I'm actually just going to take a piece of printer paper and some temporary adhesive, and I'm going to tape these pieces onto here in the same order. And then I'm going to run that through my embossing folder. Maybe there's a simpler way of doing this, but it's just what I thought of at the time, just to make things easy. So and I'm going to kind of butt them up against each other so that the script does line up. Not that it's going to matter because it's not real words anyways, but this is just how my Virgo brain works. Right, Darlene, if you're watching, my birthday twin. Okay. Yeah, this doesn't have to be perfect, but, and last piece here. And again, all I'm doing is lining that up so that I can run it through my embossing folder. Okay. I'm going to grab my universal plate system that I use for my embossing folders. And if you've never used it before, it's a great system. It comes with your base plate, and then it tells you how to create your embossing folder sandwich. So I'm using the Spellbinders Scribbled Letter embossing folder, and it's a regular embossing folder. It's not 3D, and so that is going to be how to build a standard embossing folder. So I'm going to use my platform A, platform B, my paper with my embossing folder, and then I'm going to use cutting plate C. Okay, so I'm going to have this all run through my die cutting machine as well. And for those that might be a little bit new to embossing folders, we always say that you should give your paper just a light spritz. So I've just got my distress sprayer here with some water, and I'm just going to do a light spritz on either side, and it just helps break up the fibers of the paper so they don't rip when you're going through an embossing folder. The paper that we're using with Simply Stated Design, it's an 80-pound printed paper, which is a really nice weight. And so it embosses very nicely. Okay, so I'm just running it through my die cut machine here. Okay, so there you can see. Hopefully you can see the texture. I've just embossed that piece of paper. Would it have been fine on its own? Absolutely. It's a beautiful, beautiful background paper with lovely colors, and you can almost feel the texture in just with the different colors. But I just thought it would be fun to add another layer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add some metallic wax to the embossed images. So you can feel there's embossed images raised. And so I'm going to add some metallic wax. I'm using vintage gold, and all I do is I put it on a flat sponge on a blending tool and just very, very lightly rub it on top of the embossed areas. I just use a very tiny little amount. I'm just going to use my finger to move that around. I've got a cloth underneath here, and I'm just going to lightly, lightly apply it to my raised. And that's okay if some gets on the paper itself. There'll just be some extra gold highlights. I'm just doing this very, very lightly. Again, because this is a standard embossing folder, it's not super high embossed areas. So I'm just trying to keep it just to the embossed pieces here. Okay. And there you go. Super fast, really easy, but just another way of adding some interest to these background papers. Okay, so I'm going to set that off to the side. And then what I can do is I can actually glue these pieces onto my background. And it'll be easy to do because I've got just that temporary tape on there. I'm using my My Sweet Petunia glue press to add my adhesive. If you don't have one of these, I would highly recommend putting it on your Christmas wish list. It is wonderful. Okay. Actually, what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to give this a quick dry just to make sure that the ink is dry. Okay, hopefully that's enough. I just didn't want it smudging. Okay. Temporary adhesive, you can just lightly rub it away. And now I'm just gonna thin bead of glue here. And I'm gonna pop it into these openings. Okay, so there's a stitched line around each of these rectangles or each of these sections. So I'm just gonna center my paper the best I can within those stitched areas. Okay. I'm just going to repeat that for the remaining pieces. I think when I heat set it, it stuck my pieces down a little bit more, that temporary adhesive, than it normally would, but that's okay. I'm going to try and make sure I get in those corners. And again, just centering best I can areas. I'm just doing this to protect my paper and or fingers from getting gold in case it's still a little bit wet, and just preventing it from smudging at all. Okay, grab the next section. I love this glue press because it's inverted while it's sitting in the holster. So the glue is sitting at the end ready to go as soon as you pick it up. So you don't have to worry about shaking your bottle upside down. And it just comes out so nicely. So if you have any kind of hand issues, maybe some bit of arthritis, it's a really lovely tool to have in your stash. I think all of us at the store have them in our craft rooms. Okay, just a few more pieces here and then move on to the next steps. So any type of embossing folder would be great. Little polka dots. You know, these are fairly small sections, so you probably would want to use an embossing folder with a bit of a smaller pattern, just so that you can make it out. I really, really love this scribbled letter embossing folder. I use it all the time. I think it's really lovely. Just gives some interest, dimension, without it being too distracting. There's so many script stamps that are out there, so it was really nice when they came out with an embossing folder as well. It's great. And especially the size that it is. It's a nice large size. Okay. Almost there. Hopefully everybody's enjoying all the videos that are available. 24 cards. That's wonderful out of one kit. Love it. Can't wait to go and watch everybody else's videos too. We all are huge fans of Simply Stated in the store. Chantel is so talented. Love her collections. It's wonderful to work with. Okay. All right, so there we go. So we have our background done. Pretty simple. Okay, and then I'm going to grab our card base that we had worked on. And it still feels a bit damp, so I'm actually just going to give it a bit of a dry here. Okay, now we're going to take our background piece and just adhere it to our card front. Okay, I'm going to center this best we can. Okay, just going to take that same piece of paper. I'm just going to move this off to the side while I work on a sentiment. I'm going to put it under something to let that dry. So for the sentiment, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it or not, but I've actually clear embossed it, and I also lined it a little bit with that same gold. And so I'm going to do that now. So here's the sentiment, and off to the side, I've got just a piece of scrap paper. I'm going to use that to catch my embossing powder. I'm using Ranger's Super Fine Detail Clear Embossing Powder. And I'm actually going to be using my Versamarker pen to apply my embossing ink. You could use any embossing ink that you have. I like the Versamark as well, and I could just stamp that right on there. But sorry, before I do that, I'm actually going to add a little bit of gold just to the edges of the sentiment. Again, you don't have to do this, but I just think it's like just a nice little touch, and it ties in with the inked background that we did, and we're going to do some gold splatters as well. So I'm just taking my sponge dauber, and I find it also takes the white edge of the paper away. Just give that a bit of a rub. It's not super noticeable, but I think sometimes these little details are really pretty and they make a difference. So it takes it just that extra step. Okay, yeah, it's really pretty. You can add as much as you want. You could just put it on your finger as well. Probably need to have a little bit more on here, but oh yeah, that's looking good. Okay. The cat back on that. I've had this for so long and I've hardly used any. It goes so far because it's so highly pigmented. It's just lovely. Okay. Now, I'm going to give this a bit of a dry. Okay, so now I'm going to take my embossing pen, and I'm going to use the brush side. So there's a nib and then there's a brush side. I'm just going to use the brush because it's got more coverage. And we're going to do this a few times. So this first layer is just to get first coverage done. Okay. just going to grab it by the very corner here because it's a little piece. Don't want to burn my fingers, so I'm going to use my tweezers and I'm just going to give that a heat set. Give me one moment. Okay. So because the weight of this cardstock is 80 pounds, it takes embossing really nicely. But I will be putting some extra strips of cardstock on the back just to give it a little bit more structure. Okay, so that was the first layer and I'm going to do that again. So I'm just going to take my embossing pen one more time. Might even do it 3 times, we'll see. And I'm going to go back over top and then add more embossing powder. And it's just going to make it almost looks like an epoxy sticker, which I think is really nice. Just gives you a little bit of shine, again, to your project. So. Okay. Give it another heat set to melt the powder. There we go. It's really neat. Okay, I'm just going to dump my embossing powder back in here so we don't have a major disaster. Okay, and then I did have a piece of black cardstock, just a strip of cardstock here to do my backer, but I'm actually just going to use this piece here that came from the background from the postage die and just cut some strips to go here to add a little bit of structure and a bit of dimension. I'm going to do a couple of them. That way we're using up some of our, grab these scissors instead. And if you haven't seen these scissors before, these are the recoil scissors, and I love these. They're so comfortable in your hand. You don't have your thumb in the hole of the scissors, so it makes it really comfortable. They're super sharp, with a nice little point on the end, so I'm a big fan. Okay. I think I might do one more strip here. I really like having a bit of extra dimension to pop off that ephemera piece. And of course, that is the star of the show, is the sentiment a lot of times on our cards. Okay, sorry, this isn't the most exciting part of the video, but these are the little details that I love putting into my cards. I just feel like helps everything stand out a bit more. Okay, I'm gonna bring my card back in so you can see that's just created a nice base for that sentiment. Okay. Now, like I said, I had already done some Wink of Stella on the succulents here. You could also take some glossy accents or some Nouveau Crystal drops, some clear Nouveau Crystal drops, and put it in the glass of the window. I chose not to do that for this one, but I did do it on one of my other samples too. Okay, and now I'm just going to take off all of the adhesive backing. And sorry, this is also not super exciting to watch, but necessary. And we're just going to adhere this to our panel. And what I love about these collections of papers that you're getting in your World Cardmaking Day kit is that they all coordinate. So wouldn't it be nice to do a set of cards as a gift for a friend or a family member? So this set of cards that I did, the sentiments aren't really specific, but I thought they would be nice general cards to be able to send to somebody. You know, you just let them know you're thinking of them, or one of the other sentiments is about gratitude, so that'd be a really nice thank you card. But because they're all coordinating papers, they would make a lovely set. So if you're needing a gift for somebody, maybe keep that in mind. And I know there's all different themes of cards, which I thought was really fun too with this collection, is that you get a great variety. And we all have a different style, so you're going to end up with very different cards if you choose to design them as we have here. Okay, and now I'm just going to center this as best I can. And remember, this is handmade, not Hallmark, so we're not going to fuss the details. Okay, looks close enough for me. And again, because I've used a pretty good amount of foam adhesive, good coverage across there, it's not bending in any of the corners or on the sides. It's laying really nice and flat. And then we'll put our sentiment on. And use the floor of the house to be able to line it up. I'm also going to use my T-ruler here to make sure that I've got it pretty well lined up. Okay. And the last thing that I wanted to do was just add a little bit of gold splatter. So I'm going to take my Yasutomo watercolor paint, which is so wonderful, add a little bit of water. And I've just got a small paintbrush here, just with a very small end. And be mindful of what you have around your desk because it may splatter. And then I'm just going to do a few little splatters here. It's such a pretty gold. Okay, I think that's good. And I would just let that sit and dry. But there you go. There's our little card. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the card inspirations that are to come. Have a great day, everyone.